So we're now going to move on to the Student Award ceremony with Mathilde Dauquière. Hello, Mathilde, who's a project manager at Sésame. With one microphone, it's better. Thank you so much, Cécile. And Jean-Paul Thomas, head of the Transport Insurance Department at France Assureur. The Student Award is a keystone of those Parimat days. Maybe we can close the doors? A word about the award, Mathilde. It's a classic, isn't it? Well, yes, it's a classic now. It was created in 2015 by the organization board with 3 main goals. The first one was to promote. Can you hear me? Yes, we can. Promote the insurance, the maritime transport and aviation insurance market, to increase our business's visibility. You all know that better than I do. Very often our business is the hidden side of the iceberg, and so I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. So our job is to establish closer links and ties between the world of academia and business so that students understand the relevance of what we do and so that they want to work in it. And so the winner to whom we're going to give the award is a good example of that. Jean-Paul, about the selection process. In fact, the selection process is essential because Sésame receives quite a high number of theses, so the jury cannot read all of the theses sent to Sésame. So there's a pre-selection process with Pascal and Mathilde, who have a first screening of theses. And then a big thank you to volunteers who read the pre-selected theses, and based on a score that is a pass score that is set at 14 out of 20. There's no specific score. Generally, well, you need to be above a first. Well, we have a first selection we received about 15 theses at Sésame, and out of 15 theses, they're all read by Pascal and myself, or at least studied to see how relevant the topics are, and then we give each of these theses to professionals in the room who were mentioned at the opening of this meeting by Pascal. We're looking for professionals, volunteers. So if you're keen readers, don't hesitate. We're always looking out for professionals to read these theses. So once we've selected the readers, we give them the thesis for a first read-through, and there are 6 criteria for assessment. What we assess in the first read-through is the relevance of topics for your business areas. We want topical subjects. We want subjects that are not just compilations of case law or doctrine sources. We want topics, we want theses that are well drafted. It may seem obvious, but it's not always the case. And also theses where there's a clear issue from the get-go with solutions that are offered. We assess these 6 criteria, and then Jean-Paul Thomas takes over as chair of the final jury, and he's the one making the selection. One correction. I'm just a humble member of the jury. The jury is chaired by Professor Galpiet from Bordeaux, who could not be here this morning, and Patrick Le Serre, the former chair and president of Sésame and vice chair of the Le Havre Land and Sea Commerce Court. So we get together and discuss about the theses that we are passed on. There were 5 theses pre-selected out of the 15 that Mathilde mentioned. That's a process that takes a while because we need to read them carefully. The main selection criterion is the relevance for insurance, with one additional criterion, which is that this year we tried to highlight a thesis that was directly connected to the news. So with these two cumulative criteria, we selected, drum roll, well, Cécile will share the name of the winner. No, it's just a drum roll. I'm not very good for that. But the big winner is this year. That's a thesis by Louis Chéronnet entitled War Risk Insurance for Chartered Risks, a legal and budgetary choice called into question by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. You can see that it's right on target with the news. Yes, it's very topical, so please come on stage, Louis, and congratulations.
Please join us. And I think that one of your teachers is with you today. Could you introduce him, maybe? So I'm here with the administrative head of the master's degree from in law from University Paris 1. So we heard the title of your thesis, and it's quite telling. So what are the key takeaways from your dissertation? So what are the takeaways, and what is your thesis about? Well, my thesis is the result of 2 years of learning at the underwriting service of Garex. And during these 2 years, I worked on quotes, including for war risk areas. So a few months after I joined Garex, the war in Ukraine started. And this quotation situation in this context had not been experienced in several decades since the tankers crisis in the Persian Gulf. And the charterers were questioning were reluctant to pay the additional premium, and so I wondered how they could argue against this additional premium because of raw risks. And I also wanted to look into the various parties for chartering. And I thought that the economy would be of marine insurance would be completely turned upside down with this war situation. And so we have the ship owner on the one hand that is willing to insure their ship at a lower cost, and they want to have this cost, the extra cost, to be paid by the charterer. And then the charterer will want to keep this cost at a minimum in order not to impact its margins. And so I wanted to look at the economy of international trade, to look into marine insurance as well. And these are the pillars that led me to the following title, War Risk Insurance, for war risk, a model that has been questioned by the Ukrainian-Russian war. And so, what is the answer? Well, to answer this question, we need to take the approach that I have in my thesis, focusing both on law and economics. It all depends on the cost of the insurance service, and it all depends on which price insurers are willing to pay. And this is one of the key questions in my thesis. War risk is not about frequency, but about intensity. And one of the difficulties coming from this is that it's a risk that we cannot model, and it's very difficult for insurers to define an amount. So do you have any advice to the insurers in the room? No, I'm just teasing you because you seem very comfortable addressing the audience. Well, during the renewal quotes and during the first quote, to be aware of the distribution of roles of obligations between ship owners and charterers. Because when I was working at Garrick, I saw that the additional premium was paid for by the charterer mainly. So maybe being more aware of how shipping works in terms of contracts. And maybe remembering that war risk is not that far away from us. Well, I think that we had a tendency to forget about war risk. Oh, yes, absolutely. And one of the main findings in my thesis is that the war in Ukraine created a threshold effect with the perception of this insurance and the purchase and cost of insurance. And now ship owners and charterers understand what it costs practically in terms of a war risk, what it costs to send a ship in this area. And I drew a comparison with the current situation in the Red Sea to see if these findings that were applied to the Black Sea can be applied to the Red Sea. I think that it would be an interesting exercise. A big round of applause for Louis. Mathilde. So it's great to see students that are so committed. Maybe a few words about the involvement of your students, and then Mathilde. Well, thank you for this warm welcome, and I'm very happy to share the result of Louis, who's a perfect university student, and. We decided to foster apprenticeship 20 years ago. At the time in Paris, at master's degree level, there were only 4 degrees offering apprenticeship, and that there are over 100. And I think that this is a great evidence that we made the right choice. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add that Louis's thesis will probably be published on the CESAM's website. So if you want to read it, please download it. It will be available on the website. And maybe one last word. This thesis is not very long. It is very easy to read, and it's written in a maybe not journalistic style, but not far from it. And it's quite interesting to read. And Antoine Persson from LDA was helping you with the thesis, and that's probably what helped you making it easier to read. Yes, and I tried to build a few very visual logograms on the distribution of roles and of obligations of ship owners and charterers for the process of quotations. And this is something that is very visual, so easy to understand when you read the thesis.